Today's affirmation is, I am surrounded by nurturing love. And affirmations are, as the founders of this faith and tradition said, not something else which we're seeking, but something that already exists. It's a reality, but it may not be manifest in our lives or in our experience. So we say it, and as we say it, it begins to condition or change the subconscious or those remembrances that we have of erroneous thoughts, because the reality and truth of this teaching is only valid if we put it in action. It isn't enough to intellectualize it or know it. Lots of people know spirituality. Lots of people know peace. A lot of people know health, but they don't demonstrate it in their lives. And so the key to practical spirituality and Christianity is to be able to demonstrate it, to take it from the mind and the heart and put it into our lives, and to make it meaningful. And so that's what we want to do. Can we say it 3 times together? I am surrounded by nurturing love. I am surrounded by nurturing love. I am surrounded by nurturing love. And our question this morning is, who has nurtured me? Because you're asking yourself, who has nurtured me? Who has nurtured you in your life? What do we celebrate today? Mother's Day. Now, I can talk all day long about love, and people do all the time, and we'll save that for Valentine's Day or something, but because that's one of those so big subjects that it can be talked about and thought about forever. And so love is what it is, and we all will kind of leave that there. But when we talk about love, so often we talk about kinds of love. And there are kinds of love, there are dimensions of love, but there is divine love, which is all-encompassing love. But love, in and of itself, has no conditions, but it may have certain purposes. And so we are surrounded, I am surrounded, you're surrounded, we're all surrounded by nurturing love. What is, we don't use that word much anymore, to be nurtured, to be nurtured, to be fed and helped and strengthened, to nurture something. Today is the day when we celebrate mothers. And for many of us, the remembrance of a mother is nurturing love, to feed and nourish the needs of the family and the people around us. The question this morning is, who has nurtured me? Some of us were raised by grandparents, and others were raised by aunts and uncles. Some were raised in lots of different homes. I mean, our background's all the same. And so this nurturing love is something that is present always, whether we see it or not. Because one of the things that we understand in New Thought, and one of our foundation teachings, is that we see beyond the appearances. We see beyond the appearances of what are there. So even if someone has a childhood in which they maybe didn't see it as very nurturing, there were people there who nurtured them. And if it wasn't in childhood, there were people that nurtured them as they grew up. And if it didn't happen there, there were people who nurtured them in their experience of life. And so it is with you. And so today what we're saying is we celebrate mothers and mothering. We celebrate what that spirit is about. And we also celebrate the nurturing spirit of those who have come into our lives and provided that for us. And you know, we go through our lives and we don't think about them. You know, I think about a 5th grade school teacher that I had. I think about a guy that lived down the street when I was a kid, who wasn't even a woman, obviously, but that was nurture. I think about Dr. Hirsch, who was my mentor and you know, the person that helped me more in the early part of my life to understand who I was and what I should be and helped me out. I think about a lot of people, but I don't think very often about them. I don't think often enough about them. And often we miss that opportunity. And so the reality is that life is changing always. It changed for your mother, it changed for you, it changes for all of us. And it is through this nurturing love and spirit that we are able to sustain ourselves and strengthen ourselves and grow. One of the things that we need to be cautious about is that we tend so often to think about the negative things instead of the positive things. And that's the way we operate, because that's what's around us. And somebody said, well, you know, the New Thought's all just positive thinking. Well, it isn't positive thinking. It is about thinking positively. And it is about understanding that the negative emotions and feelings come out. And so I will take one aside in this talk today for Mother's Day, and I will speak to those who have problems with their mothers. Now, most people had problems at one time or another, but I mean serious problems, or people who didn't have a perfect mother. The reality is that most of us in life do the very best that we can. Very few of us set out to do something really badly, and just do it. We do it for a lot of reasons, and it doesn't mean that we're overlooking it or condoning it, but it does mean that there are a variety of circumstances in everyone's life. And so whether it's Mother's Day or Father's Day, or whether you think about your family or your background, or whether you think about your relatives or whatever it is, the people who have failed to meet the expectation that you have they're just people that have done so because of a lot of circumstances and situations. And most of us do the best that we can. And those who have challenges in your memories, the work is to see beyond that and to understand that at the heart and core, every single one of us, when we're born, is a good and wonderful person. Every one of us is good and innocent and perfect, created in the likeness and image of God. And then circumstances and situations change us, and yet we see this facade of who we think people are, and in fact, that little innocent child, that perfection that was created, is still there. So it's always there. Jesus did that with everybody. He did that with everybody. He saw everybody. He saw everybody, and he accepted everybody. He had a nurturing spirit. His mother had a nurturing spirit. Those around him, he was trying to teach to have a nourishing spirit and presence. And the presence and power of God in this invisible universe, this invisible and divine and magnificent presence, is filled with nurturing love. That nurturing love creates and gives to us everything that we need to nourish our minds, our spirits, and our bodies. And so this nurturing love surrounds us always, and that nurturing love is always accessible and available to us. And so who is it who has nurtured you in the past? Who is it who nurtures you in the present? And who is it that you nurture? Because what we receive, we give, that we may receive again and give. And so often we think about that in economic terms, especially in New Thought, but it is true for everything. And so if someone nurtured us, then what are we required to do? Nurture. But we're not required to do it. We are invited to do it, because what we know is if we operate according to the law, then our lives are perfect. And the law operates irrespective of people or deeds or religion or faith or anything else. It just operates. And so nurturing and nurturing love operates in the universe and in our lives. And the more nurturing that we receive, the more we are able to give. And if we feel that we haven't been nurtured adequately, how do you compensate for that? You nurture more people. Because eventually we begin to get the understanding and reality and truth that these laws are operating. And if we understand that these laws are operating, then our whole life becomes clearer. Our whole being becomes more pristine. And our understanding and realization that every experience comes to us with a positive and wonderful opportunity for us to align our thinking, our mind with the divine mind, and to allow ourselves to not worry about teachings or rules or work. It isn't even something we have to learn. All it is, we have to come to know it. And that's the wonderful and magnificent thing of this faith and tradition, and the faith and tradition that we believe Jesus talked about, and others talked about, the reality and truth of understanding and knowing who and what we are, and allowing that to come forth in our lives. So happy Mother's Day. The good news is that every one of us has been nurtured in some way. There's no way that we can say that we haven't been. It may have been your mother, and I hope it was, and I hope that that woman was a major influence in your life. But aside from mothers, there are a myriad of other people, male and female, who have nurtured you and me in our lives. And it started on day one, when you took your first breath, and it will not end until you take your last breath. And I suspect that we'll probably be doing some nurturing on the other side as well. So this week, I would invite you to reflect and think about who it was in your life that nurtured you. And maybe more importantly, at least equally importantly, is who is it that nurtures you today? So this idea of nurturing is so very important. And as we are nurtured, again, the good news is we are able to nurture others. And so look at that this week and sit down and take a look at who it is that nurtured you in your life. Many of those people I think about so seldom, and yet they're so important, had such an influence on my life. And just bringing them to memory and thinking about them does something wonderful and magnificent. It changes us because it reminds us of what they did for us, and it reminds us of what they brought to us. And then it creates, ideally, within us, the ability to then go out and do the same for others and to be able to nurture them and help them and allow them to grow.